She says, and I want to say thank you. And she's like, and she said to me, she's like, you changed my life. We had a patient a few years ago that I'll never forget this. She came into our office as a new patient, and she really looked very worn out and very beat up. And we got into the whole conversation, went very thorough through our whole process. Our exams typically are about 2 hours long. We thought that maybe she was on certain types of medicines because her gum tissue was so hyperinflamed, so swollen, no cavities, no dental tooth issues. So it just seemed like it was probably a chemical response to a drug. And after getting further into the conversation and getting into the lifestyle conversation and just kind of finding out about stress, it turned out that she was in a very abusive relationship with a spouse, an abusive one that was both emotionally and physical. Stress in life is inflicting a lot of these problems because it's a major trigger. And she says, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, you kind of have to remove the stress from your life. I guess it seemed like she was grateful for hearing it because we were just being openly honest, and it was from the heart. It was just basically just giving her feedback from what we see and what could possibly be, just something that's going on for her that could maybe help her with her life. We weren't even at that point thinking about the full connection of even that. So she left the office thinking that we were going to have a follow-up, heard nothing. So I'm sitting with, Dr. Al, and we're talking, and I said, I haven't heard from this woman. I was like, maybe we ran her off. I don't know, maybe we shouldn't have said something that we said, but nothing. Months go by. Less than a year, probably 9 months later, all of a sudden, patient comes back in for a follow-up. I didn't really recognize who it was because I didn't recognize the name. She shows up, sits in the chair. I come back in and I walk in and she's all smiley and she's like, oh my God, it's so exciting to see you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm usually good with faces. I'm like, but I really don't even remember. I was with you and Dr. Dannenberg, and we were talking about my gums, and they were all inflamed, and I had all of these problems, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I remember that. I'm like, you look like a totally different person. I'm like, she looked like a totally different person. And when we started having the conversation, I said, well, what did you do? She says, no, she says, when I left the office that day, she's just like, I just knew that, what you said about the stress in my life, I had to remove myself from the stress that was being inflicted on me. She's like, and at that point, I made that final decision that I actually moved out of state. I left my situation with the person that I was with, and I went back to my family and I spent time with my family, and I'm just back here to show you that, that was the trigger. To have that kind of an impact on people through caring, like you just don't forget it. She was a beautiful woman, and her life dramatically got better. She was starting to seek her passions. She was starting to, figure the things that were going to drive her. And she got closer back with her family. A lot of things had really taken her apart, but her whole gum health and her periodontal gum tissues that was all hyperinflamed, everything went back to normal. It was unrelated to improper eating. It was unrelated to, not brushing your teeth right. It was purely stress-induced inflammation on the body that was wreaking havoc and causing her life to plummet. And now, she's living the life she's supposed to be living. Do you feel bad about, obviously, the understanding, like, I'm a Christian man, so it's like, for me, when you think about divorce or things like that, it's like you don't really want to ever think that, because you're supposed to be married to one and you're supposed to stay in commitment. But situations like that are very difficult. But it's a conversation that needs to happen, especially when someone needs the help.